Chapter 77 Build a mountain with water, empty the sea with a shovel, and the enduring power of myths. A first disclaimer. All the people in this book are fictional. All claims, regardless of topic, are just that, claims. Some are rooted in empirical facts, while others are pure imagination. My goal is to strike a balance between vision and reality, between fiction and fact, in such a way that the audience can recognize themselves and build further on the abundance of ideas and inventions. The book has no ambition to proclaim an overarching goal, but rather questions established truths. In this way, in a Socratic manner, the rest is left to the audience. When Freeman was little, he partly grew up on his grandfather's farm. The grandfather had a friend or brother in the local congregation. This was far out in the rural countryside of Norway, and the people in the village were generally positive toward preachers from the big city. They would gladly visit the small prayer house beside the parish church to sow a few words of God in people's hearts. This friend of the grandfather was such a preacher, and eventually he settled in the small local community and found work at the large farm in the village. He attended the Sunday church service regularly, but just as often the weekly gatherings at the prayer house. Their things were livelier, with loud gospel music, speaking in tongues, and uninhibited dancing. In a way, it was an entirely different Jesus in there than in the solemn church space. This man, named Conrad, was known as an engaging storyteller. He had been invited by Freeman's grandfather one Saturday afternoon. Waffles and coffee out in the farmyard. People from the neighboring farms had heard about it and gathered around small tables on the lawn in front of the main house. There was great anticipation surrounding Conrad's visit. What would they learn today? Conrad took his place among the whole crowd. The adults were present and just as excited as all the children that afternoon. Conrad cleared his throat and introduced the story with a brief outline and a short explanation of its purpose. He pointed out that the story contained fairy tale-like characters and actions, but that it was meant to illustrate the power that faith was rooted in among people. More than 7,000 years ago there was a great land in Africa. The land was located roughly where the Sahara Desert lies today. It was a green and fertile country, with large mountains and idyllic lakes everywhere. The people there were highly educated even without books. They passed down knowledge orally through a clever memorization technique. They learned to remember exactly what they had been taught. In the capital lived a king who possessed great power and extraordinary abilities, entirely out of the ordinary. He could lift large objects using only the power of his mind. He always said a prayer before lifting the 240 horses he had grazing in the fields. The people were beside themselves with enthusiasm and were more than willing to follow the king's advice in all matters. Moreover, the king said that everything he did came from the God of the universe, to suggest that he was subject to a higher authority. On this day he wanted to do something new and unexpected. He wanted to involve the people in a construction project. There was a large lake next to the capital, and everyone was instructed to bring shovels down to the water. The actual purpose was to put the water into buckets they had brought with them and then walk to the other side of the lake to build a mountain with all the water they carried. The people did as the king said, and bucketfuls of water were moved. The people did not see the mountain rising and complained to the king. But he said they had to be patient and continue the next day. They had to trust his advice and guidance, because they were truthful. The people returned the next day and continued the groundwork. A kind of royal project. And so they went on day after day for weeks and months. But no mountain was to be seen. Then the king said, "How little faith you have." At this, everyone was offended. And they would show the king that they had plenty of faith, so they continued the work. And so they go on working to this very day. They will never give up. Conrad saw the astonishment in their expressions. The local gathering was speechless. What could they say? Conrad reassured them that this is how great and powerful people always work. And he added, "Did you notice that the mighty king insisted that his words were the truth? And when a king speaks the truth, we must simply accept it, and it becomes important to do what the king commands. For in the end it will be as the king says." Then a little girl raised her hand and asked, "Is that why you have invited the whole village to the prayer house tonight?"